What number?
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom.
What number?
With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, genius economist, venture capitalist, and political analyst and strategist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical, political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the stories making the news is Len Carter. Len is an investment banker, business consultant, and private investor. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Carter.
Welcome back. I look forward this hour every Wednesday from 6:30 to 7:30. Should we make it shorter? Anyway, some people said it's better to make it shorter. Other podcasts are a lot longer, so I think an hour is good. But if you have any feelings, let me know. I mean, feelings about that. I'm sure you have feelings. And again, I'm delighted to have Len Carter back. He's brilliant. I discussed it many times. Every school he graduated from, every advanced studies, master's degree that he took, he was at the top of his class. He's a genius, and he's just a lovely human being. And he's accommodating my desire to have him on. Has a lot of important things to take care of. But that's the kind of person he is. He does everything good for anybody in the world and everybody in the world. So we're back with the news of the week. That's what we cover. All of the important events, economic, just the daily issues like inflation and the cost of what eggs are going for and what oil for your gas for your car is going for. All the fundamental things that affect your life every single day. The availability of health care and suggestions of, for those who ask me, of the best hospitals or the best doctors, if I can help them track down the best in whatever they're looking for. I'm familiar with many of these outstanding hospitals and the doctors that have served there. But anyway, Len is one terrific human being, and his wisdom is beyond compare. So I'm delighted to have him back, and you're lucky to have the benefit of his knowledge and wisdom and even his humor. His humor is that he disagrees with everything, everything that I assert. Anyway, he's fun to have on, even though he's abusive at times and beating me up on my views. But it's always intelligent, like your views are when you all write to me or call me. I really appreciate it, even the hostile criticism, because I get wiser and more insightful from those views, even the most critical, because it makes me step back and think about what you're saying. I know you're right because the way you state the issue. So I have to pay attention and say, why don't I understand that? And then I start to understand the feelings of others, even though they might be diametrically opposed to my own. So I always apologize at the beginning of our podcast, because by the nature of this podcast, since we deal with the headlines of the week, it's always depressing because the only thing that makes the headlines is bad news. You never see the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times have a headline that somebody just recovered from a horrible disease or a horrible cancer. Uh, if there's somebody really big, it might appear in somewhere in the end section of the newspaper or the middle section, but never a headline. The headlines are murders and mass killings and the use of explosives by people that shouldn't have them, the perennial use of the most outrageous thing we have in this country, more guns than almost all the other countries in the world combined, but guns carried by individuals. And it keeps getting worse because they keep adding to the freedom to buy a gun, own a gun. They have an open carry now. You can even, in many states, they passed laws that you can carry a gun even in a bar where you might be stone drunk and not know what you're doing and start shooting up people in the bar. So those kind of things make the headline. And unfortunately, because of the overwhelming availability to guns, that even little kids can go to their father's desk or closet. They're not packed away properly. They're loaded. The kids often wound themselves or kill themselves, or the older ones even use those guns to commit suicide. It's horrendous. But there's nothing ever done, even though 80% or more of the American voters population is in favor of some form of gun control. They keep lowering the age at which men and women or boys and girls can own a gun and carry a gun. It's just outrageous. But those are the headlines. The murders, the mass. We have in this country, more than one mass shooting every single day of the year. That means more than 365 by 50%. So that's about almost 700, 600 and something. I didn't do the arithmetic. What's 150% of 365?
It's like 500 in total.
500? 500 shootings a day, 500, a year that make the headlines. And they kill innocent school children, teachers, children at the age of, in Connecticut, years ago we experienced a horrible attack on a school, and children 4, 5, 6, and 7 were all killed, as well as their teacher. So, by the nature of what we discuss, mass murders, lunatic murders, people that attack other non-white people, or in some cases white people, racism that's dealt with guns, or racism in general makes the headlines if it's mean enough. So the headlines are mean, and hurtful. And you read about families that are broken up, and the father, policemen that are murdered regularly and leave children of 4, 5, 6, and even pregnant wives that imminently expect to have another child. It's so depressing. So I have to apologize because the nature of what we discuss comes from the events of the week that make the headlines. So, and one of the ways I urge you to deal with them, with these depressing events, is change shift your gears. Get a hold of this book on the screen, Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back. Woody Allen, one of the great comedians and great actors and writers of movies, says life is made up of the miserable and the horrendous. And if you're just miserable, you got to be happy that you're not suffering the horrendous. So count your blessings. Whatever you're suffering, hopefully will pass, and it'll pass in a more constructive way than if you worry about it in advance, in which case you pay for it doubly or triply, because well before it happens, you're suffering, and then when it happens, you're suffering. And in fact, most of the things we worry most about never come to fruition. So we even went through unnecessary personal abuse imposed by none other by our own minds, pushing in the direction of seeing bad things about the past, the present, or the future. The past we can't even change. Why look back on why deal with that? But the nature of human beings is such that we talk about our disappointments, we suffer about our losses or our failures or forever. Instead of, like if you go on a terrible vacation somewhere, you don't dream it up every time. You just don't go back to that place ever again. But with our negative experiences, we always seem to go back and focus on them, ponder them, get depressed by them. So shift gears. And if you want to know the best way to move forward, is get a copy of the Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back, which is right in front of you. If you have the screen of myself and Len Carter as we're talking. It's a book that has 365 pages, one page for every day of the year, that gives you the philosophy, the thinking of all the greatest scholars, clergymen, rabbis. Rabbis are clergymen. All the most brilliant people that dealt with this subject over the years, the philosophers, Plato and Socrates, the great Greek thinkers, just about everybody that I could find that had brilliant thoughts on the subject is in this book and gives it to you in small doses for every day of the year, 365 days. Plus every page has humor, it has jokes, it's bound to lift your mood, and it doesn't provide happiness, because the way we think of happiness in this country, unfortunately, or fortunately, if you want to say so, is that you're jumping up and down and you're happy, like if you're fixed on heroin or marijuana, and it gives you a high, and you don't even know what's going on, but you're smiling and laughing and joking and patting other people on the back, and you think you're happy, or it's the impression that you give that you're happy, but afterwards, inevitably, it always leaves you, as the effect wears off, more depressed than you were before you, and then you need a fix again. That's what makes it addictive, because you feel that it was happiness, so you need to get more fixes, more of the addictive drugs, or more of the alcohol, or the beers, 12 bottles of beers or something. But the best way is to find the answers in this book. And it's not happiness of the kind that's going to make you jump up and down. It may, in some cases, make you very happy, laughing and smiling, and even sharing the ideas and thoughts with others, and patting them on the back, or helping you give a lift to others. So it's more to get you content and teach you how to deal with the inevitable challenges and tragedies and difficulties that all of us human beings suffer. I don't think there's ever been a human being that lived in this world that was awake and normal that didn't suffer terrible tragedies. It's part of the landscape. If nothing else, they themselves had accidents. They lost loved ones. In some cases, even their own children. But in most cases, at least, even if their parents were old, their mother and their fathers, heartbreaking events throughout their lives. And then we have experiences at school where we were mistreated by a teacher, or we flunk a course and we were devastated. I mean, there's endless ways that we suffer, and this book teaches you how to deal with that, how to overcome that, or how to think positively, so that even if you're going through a very difficult period, you will be able to survive and deal with it in a constructive way, or you'll be able to help your best friend if he's going through a terrible problem. You won't go over, and as many people do, and think they're giving great advice, Solomon-like advice, that this too shall pass. If you're going through a major tragedy, you don't need confirmation that it'll pass. Then you know it'll pass. Well, right now you're suffering like crazy. So rather, if you have a sense of compassion, you tell your friend, I know what you're going through. I know how horrible it is. If there's anything I could do to minimize the hurt, I'm there for you. And then to get him off the momentary uh, depression that brought this about, the tragedy or the failure that you just experienced, you bring up something that makes him focus on a future beyond the present. It will pass, but like I tell my friend who's going through this, first I tell him, my heart's breaking for you. I know how difficult it is. I wish I could take it off your that burden off your mind, off your heart. But since I can't, I want to share it with you. I want to know if there's anything at all I could do. And then I remind them that, yeah, we're going through the worst aspects of life. But remember the great time we had last year in November? We went skiing in Vermont. Well, we're scheduled to do that again this year. Look forward to that. So you project them into the future beyond the present tragedy they're immersed in and overwhelmed by. So if you get this book, it's not the most expensive gift you'll ever get for yourself or get from anyone else. It's not the most luxurious, but I'll tell you, it's one of the most beneficial that will add to the quality of your life for the rest of your years. And I know that from people who have called me and bought the book and didn't know if it was going to be worthwhile, or people that got gifts, or people that got gifts and give it to others as gifts because they found it so beneficial, so uplifting, so I said beneficial, but life enhancing, improving the quality of their life. So if you get this book and you don't feel the same way, whether you bought the book or you got it as a gift, if you don't find those qualities for you, that it's uplifting, that it enhances your life, that it helps make you more content and less focus on the negatives and overcome the negatives more readily and focus more on the future and the good things that will be forthcoming, then just send me back the purchase slip and I will send you back double the price you paid. And even if you got it as a gift, get a copy of the purchase slip from the person that gave it to you, and I will send you double what he paid. So that in alone should help make you a little happier. You double your money, or you double the money you didn't even spend if that's somebody who spent money on you. And I've had head of corporations from major corporations. One guy told me he sent out hundreds of books because he gets such positive feedback for this gift. He sends out every year thousands of books. He says he feels good if he gets a call even to take note of it and thank him for any gift he sends. But often hardly ever hears about it, and particularly rarely hears about it 3 months later or 6 months later, getting a call and thanking him, that telling him how much they appreciate having received this book and how much it's been of help to them and to their family. They read it to their kids, and their kids love it, and their wives love it, even though the first time they turned off the television and read on one page, they said, "Dad, what are you doing? It's our favorite TV program." And I said, I'll record the program, but I want you to hear this. And since then, it's become not a habit, but a
Ritual.
A ritual. The word ritual includes the word rich. It's something beneficial, and they look forward to hearing one page every day, whether at dinner time or after dinner, sometime during the day and on the weekends, on the Sabbath, on Sunday. So the fastest way to improve the quality of your life is get a copy of this book. I promise you it's going to make a big difference in your life. And if it doesn't, doubling your money or doubling the amount of money that you didn't spend, that you got it as a gift in the form of a book. If you get the purchase slip, you get double your money back. So if you want to be more content in life and have a better all-around life, I would say just as one small idea, start this very day sitting down with yourself and think about something you would like to achieve, a dream that you would like to fulfill, and then make your life purposeful. Work, the minute you start working and doing things towards reaching that goal, your life will be more rewarding. You'll feel better. You'll look forward to the future of fulfilling that dream. But it has to be a dream that you have the capacity to fulfill. I want to be a super uh, rock star singer, but if I could, if I targeted that and spend every hour of every day of my life doing it, I couldn't achieve that. So do something that's within your potential talent capacity, and then you'll feel good. And it gives you a purpose of life. Don't let life happen to you. You're the boss. You're the boss of your mind. You make up your mind to be positive. The thing that changed my life, I often repeat, is a book I picked up early when I was going through different depressions and as everyone else, uh, down periods, uh, disappointments, difficulties. Really, you know, sometimes being at the bottom of the barrel in terms of my feelings. I came across a book by a famous bishop. I think it was a bishop, a Catholic priest who was the head of a church in Midtown Manhattan, and he wrote a book called The Power of Positive Thinking. And he pointed out that if you think positively, no matter what the circumstances are, you can deal with it better and even make negatives into positives, and certainly helps you to move on to the future in a more constructive way. So I found that to be true. When you think positive, it helps instantly, and it helps positive to happen in your life. Positive things happen in your life. And then also a book by Dale Carnegie that I found called, well, he's one of the great promoters of wisdom of living. And he wrote a book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. He wrote another book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a great book on winning friends and influence people, but on how to sell, how to win, how to move ahead in life. So all those uh, wisdom, jewels of wisdom, uh, not only jewels, what do you call them?
Pearls of wisdom.
Pearls of wisdom, that's it, are available, but few people take advantage of them or study them or pursue them or seek to find out what the greatest philosophers, the greatest thinkers, the greatest motivators, all which is available and which I try to capture in this book because I want to make it a happier world. I want to make all my listeners happier and all my children and my loved ones, my spouse, everyone that functions within my reach, my neighbors, my community, my fellow citizens, my fellow human beings throughout the world. So that's the purpose why I spent the time capturing all that wisdom from all these brilliant scholars and motivators and happiness geniuses, happiness inducing uh, methods of achieving not happiness of, that you get from drugs. That's not real happiness. That's the route to hell, even though it appears to an outsider or even to yourself that you're so happy. But this is a way to achieve the kind of gratification and satisfaction and pride and joy that comes from living a happy life, becoming content with your life. That's the most important thing. So run out and buy this book. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait. The sooner you get it, the sooner you open the first page and start to let it influence your thinking and your attitude and your gratification for all that you have, to get you to count your blessings, even though you may think you have no blessings. If you sit down and write down the things that you have as blessings that we take for granted. A friend of mine had what do you call it? A clergyman friend of mine who had 4 little kids came to visit me when I was in California at Pritigan with my wife. And he was telling me every day when his kids get up in the morning, young kids, he says that you thank God that your eyes work, that when you look out the window, you see the colors, you see the nature, you see the leaves shaking, you see the white snow, the purity of the snow on the ground, all the things that you take for granted, that we take for granted, that your fingers work, that your legs work, that your nose, your scent, your ability to sense smell works. All these things, we get up in the morning, every morning, and it's automatically there, and we don't even think it's a blessing. We think, it's always there, it's always going to be there. But he had a 4th child after the first 3 that was born with the real problems, was blind for most of his life. And they were working on doing something about his blindness. He was hopeful that maybe they'll be able to remedy that condition. But still, he realized the importance of telling his kids to appreciate life, to appreciate what you have, and count your blessings. You have lots of blessings you don't realize. If you have kids, those are blessings. If you have a spouse that's not giving you a headache every minute of the day, that's a blessing. If you have friends, a good one, if you have one good friend in this lifetime, you're blessed to no end. So, and all these things, until we lose them, people that lose them and their middle ages or older ages, from being subjected to terrible diseases, cancer, uh, um, brain damage, strokes. They never realize until, in some cases, those that do recover, how wealthy they are when they recover those capacities. Not billions of dollars. That won't do it as much as the things that are so critical to our existence and our living a decent life, much less a fulfilling life and a content life. So follow, not my advice, I just put together all the ideas that I captured over the years, and I did extensive research. And it's one of the major needs of people, because Harvard gives a course by a young Israeli professor on happiness. It's the most popular course they've ever had. He can never accommodate all of the people that sign up for him. So it shows what a basic need it is, how much people recommend it to their friends. It's unbelievable. So here you can have it for the price of going down and acquiring this book. So make life purposeful. Think of something you want to achieve that will fulfill your dream. And then this very moment, this very day, take the first step. As you take the first step and the next step, you'll feel good. And each time you feel you're making a little progress, you'll feel better. Even if it doesn't work for some extended time, remember what the young man that addressed Thomas Edison, who invented the electric bulb after years of working at it. The young man asked him, "How come, Mr. Edison, you failed 1,000 times and you never gave up?" And he says, Thomas Edison says to him, "Young man, who told you I failed 1,000 times?" And he says, "It's common knowledge. Everybody always talks about it. We discuss it, but we can't get over that you were like neurotically driven to continue even after you failed." And Thomas Edison responded, "Young man, you don't understand. I never failed once. 1,000 times I succeeded in finding out what didn't work and got closer to the answer of what I needed to do to make it work." So follow that advice alone, and you'll feel better about what we're about to do now, depress you with the sweet news. So without further ado, it's my privilege and pleasure to introduce Len Carter once again. You have the benefit of getting wisdom that you could get nowhere else on radio or podcast, I believe, that you can get from Len Carter. So Len, would you launch
Thank
the
you, Morty.
issues of this week?
Always a
That
pleasure.
hit the headline.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. You're right. I'm not going to delve into it this week, mass shootings, but last week we talked about the shooting in the 345 Park Avenue building, and since then there was another one in Emory, next to Emory at the CDC in Atlanta, and another one that's at a military base in the southeast somewhere. So we can't keep up with them. And
in this country, there's more than one every mass shooting, mass slaughter of innocent people,
yeah.
Of people who've done nothing, of little kids, of students. In Florida, they had high school kids or lower level elementary school kids. What is it called? First grade to 8th grade. What's it called?
Elementary. Well, elementary is up to about 5th grade, and then middle school, and then high school. So I thought what we would do is sort of travel the world today, going westward, starting in the Middle East, moving to Europe, and then ending in the United States. So
you're going westward to the east?
Starting in the Middle East and working our way west. So starting in the Middle East.
Starting westward and go.
Well, I guess we're moving westward as we go.
Move westward to get east.
we're starting in the Middle East and moving westward to get to Europe and then the U.S. this way.
Okay.
So we
I
saw
got you.
a few things happen in the Middle East and Gaza. First, Israel's Security Council approved a full takeover of Gaza City. Prime Minister Netanyahu says this is, quote, how we bring the war to an end. Do you think that is the way to bring the war to an end?
Well, they voted to accelerate the effort to wipe out their enemy, Hamas, which started a war under the most horrendous conditions, slaughtering women, raping women, cutting off the heads of infants on October 7th, 2023. Not soldiers, but innocent people in their homes, in their communes. In Israel, they call them kibbutz. It's a commune. They're communes that all the people work together and share everything together. So his first reaction after that occurred, Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, said we have to wipe out Hamas because it's a recurring event. They have no human values, sensibilities, and just destroy all our values, our children, our babies, rape our women and take them hostage. And so he immediately said, we're going to proceed to wipe out Hamas. And in consideration of the hostages that were taken, he held back. And since then, Israel's been held hostage to the families of the hostages. There were maybe 150 or 200 hostages taken. And those families, I can understand that. If it was my family, I would just want them saved. I wouldn't care what the price my country had to pay. I'd want them saved. But as the leader of the country, you have to do what's right for the country. If Hitler took hostages and we stood back to wait to get the hostages back, we'd become hostages of that hostage group that was advocating and what's the word? Having rallies and
protests,
and more than protests, marching with marches. And
so two other things that one just recently, Israel is in talks with South Sudan to take Palestinians from Gaza to be relocated. I think there hasn't been yet any definitive agreement or deal, but it's interesting because a few months back, President Trump said that Palestinians should be relocated, and then the Strip turned into the Riviera of the Middle East. Do you think that a massive relocation plan? I mean, Sudan is not exactly a peaceful, a stable.
Yeah, it's not paradise, right?
It would require funding and all. I do hear that they have oil, but I guess they may not
No,
be
but
exploiting it to the extent they could.
but if they were invited, if for example, Jordan invited them. Jordan's a nice country. I've been there a number of times. I've visited with the king, with the former king, and now that I visit 1 year with the son who's now the king. His number two son that he appointed his successor, and it's made up of overwhelmingly the population is Palestinian. So if Jordan would invite them, or any of the other countries would invite them. If Saudi Arabia, there's a good lifestyle there for the Arab people. All of the Middle East.
Well, it doesn't look like they are because they haven't. So maybe South Sudan is a new hope that maybe they can do a deal, because
no, but they stick Israel with the problem, because Israel would gladly help move them out to any of those places. They're not trying to hold them as hostages, and hostages are meaningless, because the minute they get back these 150 or 200, the next month they could capture another bunch, and in the process also, in the negotiations, the last time they left the first exchange, Israel got back, I think, 50 hostages, and they gave back 1,001, I think, prisoners that were serving life sentences, who had committed murders and rapes. And so I'm sure those 1,001 will kill more than 50 Israelis. So, and also, once and for all, he wants this recurring attack by Hamas or ISIS or some segment of the Arab Muslim segment of the Middle East population. And a good example of that worked and was much less able to do it, but did it anyway constructively, was all of the adjacent Arab countries to Israel used to have big Jewish populations going back centuries in many cases, and they were all forced out after Israel became a state and had to leave. They couldn't practice their religion. They were abused, and Israel took in over 1 million other Jews just because they were Jewish, not because necessarily that they had exactly the same ideas of Judaism or they were religious, but just because they were their brethren and sister, and that Israel was a tiny piece of land compared to the vast pieces of land that these former Bedouins, these Arab countries, hold and control and lead. And they have not, since Israel became a state and the Arabs that ran away were displaced, they weren't driven out by, as the propaganda goes, Israel drove them out. They were advised by the Arab countries that attacked Israel in 48, the minute Israel was declared a state, a country, a sovereign country by the UN, was attacked by 5 or 6 countries right around them. Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, what is it? Syria, Lebanon, Jordan,
Egypt.
Egypt, one or two others. And because Israel had no government, no army, nothing, they said, we'll beat these Israelis, these Jews, in a week, because they're not equipped to fight. They have no resistance. So why don't you take off, get out of the way of the war, and then you'll be able to come back and take your own property and all of the properties that the Jews owned. Much to their dismay and absolute surprise of them and the whole world, Israel managed somehow to defeat miraculously 6 nations that had armies and military equipment and whatnot. And Israel was depending on contributions from fellow Jews throughout the world, particularly military guys from the United States Army who had just recently finished fighting the Germans and Japanese in the Second World War, would provide them with volunteers and military equipment. And they took in 1 million Jews on this tiny piece of land. Why can't their fellow brethren do that for them instead of having them stay there and be locked in with no place to go? Israel doesn't want to keep them there. They're happy to let them go.
So we'll see. Maybe it'll work with South Sudan. Let's talk about the propaganda war. So that Israel is constantly facing. An Al Jazeera reporter that was killed by an IDF strike in Gaza.
Yeah.
Israel says that the reporter was really a Hamas affiliate or a Hamas leader. Al Jazeera, of course, says that's not the case.
Yeah.
So how do you fight that propaganda war, where you're accused of, killing journalists who are just there reporting news, when in fact maybe they're really, part of the war, part of the enemy.
Well, you're talking now about the most stupid, idiotic behavior of the Israelis through Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, who had the right idea when the war started to kill the enemy that perpetrated this horrendous slaughter of innocent women, babies, children, and he said, we're going to wipe them out and then not have this recurrent event with these ruthless members of ISIS, of the various elements of the Muslim and Arab world that are so hostile, not only to Jews and Israel, but to the United States. Iran calls Israel the little Satan, and the United States the great Satan. They don't hesitate to announce to the world that if we developed an atom bomb, we will instantly use it to destroy Israel and the Jewish people. And if they're going to do that to the little Satan, think of what their attitude would be towards the great Satan, the United States. But his biggest mistake is that he announces every time that we're going to wipe them out, we're going to accelerate the war. If you're going to do it, do it. Stop making announcements. We didn't announce we're going to attack Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan, with atom bombs. We didn't announce to Germany we're going to attack them in France and win back France and then march on to Germany. You don't do that. And he keeps saying it, announcing and saying. So the world says he doesn't want to end the war. I would feel the same way if I heard those announcements. If you're going to do it, do it. Well, why do you keep announcing? Well, the hostages' families are, again, I forget the word, carrying on, having these, what do you call it when they meet in Washington or
Protests.
no, the action itself. It's a protest, but the action where they
Demonstrate,
but it's more anyway, where they actively march and impose their will, such that the country is subject to the families, to the hostages' families. So the country is held hostage by the families of the hostages. You can't attack Hamas because they'll kill the hostages. Every day, the Israeli young soldiers are being drafted and serving leaving their jobs and their families and going to the front. And at the age of 17, all the way through 25 and up to 55, are being killed. So why are these hostage families treated so special? I understand if I said that the hostages would say I'm cruel, I'm vicious, I'm heartless. But no country that ever went to war stopped the fight because
didn't
the
want
other
soldiers to
countries
die.
had,
That's true.
So, but by announcing it every day, he calls attention to it, to the UN, to all the countries of the world. They forget about October 7th and that a war was started them against Israel, and they're just responding. It's the worst kind of PR. It's the worst kind of behavior. Do it. Get rid of the cancer. Don't tolerate it.
We don't have a lot of time left, so let's move to the other war front. This Friday is a summit between President Trump and President Putin in Alaska. President Zelensky is not going to be there, so it's just.
He may be. We're not sure.
The last I heard was no, but I guess a lot can change between now and then. President Trump is billing it. He wants to be there.
Right.
He says, since it's my country, I probably should be there.
Yeah, no, but Putin is the one that has to show up. And if Putin says if Zelensky shows up, I'm not coming, so it kills Trump's ability to even make the effort to make a peace movement. After he has conversations and diplomacy and tries all kinds of...
Right, and I think Putin is pretty crafty to agree to come to Alaska, to come to the United States. It looks like he's, being reasonable and, conciliatory. So let's have some predictions.
Alaska used to belong to Russia.
That's right. That's one of the reasons I think some people in Russia want it back. So CNN.
No, but that's interesting that Putin doesn't make the claim for Alaska,
right, and invade Alaska,
and as well as
Ukraine.
Yeah.
That's true. Both were.
But presumably he got paid. I mean, a pittance considering what
and
the resources.
And starting up with the U.S. over Alaska is a little bit different than starting up with Ukraine when there's no NATO members and everything. But CNN published this report listing 5 possible ways that the Russia-Ukraine war could end. So here's what they say is that, now some of them are, I think, pretty unlikely, but they just enumerate all the possibilities. One would be an unconditional ceasefire where everyone just stops. That's not really likely because Russia's, gaining ground and doesn't really have much.
The name of that is FC.
Right.
If CNN has no better idea than that, they should stop talking.
One would be just a freeze. So negotiations result in maintaining the current front lines, but there's just a freeze.
Again,
the third one is just
you don't end wars by
a persistence sort of the status quo where Ukraine resists with Western support. So that would be if Europe and the U.S. continue just to give enough that sort of maintains
and get us in a position that we're in now by getting involved of endangering the United States launching a world war, a third world war.
Right. So it's enough
led by Russia and Iran and
enough
China.
To keep Russia sort of at bay, but not so much to push them out and start a war.
Never happened.
Fourth is a catastrophe where Ukraine collapses without Western unity and support, which I think is possible if the U.S. turns its back. And the last would be that it's a repeat of Soviet Afghanistan, where the Soviet Union tried to take over Afghanistan in the 80s, I think it was, but it was just such a quagmire that they eventually just left and said, forget it, this isn't going to work. So
it wasn't worth it.
Right. Because it went on so long and it just cost so much and nothing was really happening that they just threw in the towel. So is that a possibility given, if Ukraine continues support from the West, enough weapons just to keep the fighting going and going and going and going, could Russia finally just say, like they did in Afghanistan, I've had enough?
Obviously, Putin feels very strongly about it, and he has allies that will support him, I think. And that's the danger of a third world war. Iran is supportive of Russia in this effort, and China has indicated they're supportive of Russia. So now you have all the two other major armed countries, military countries, Russia and China, going up against the United States. And the United States has no business being there. We didn't get attacked.
I think I would say the most likely outcomes are 3 in the short run, 4 in the long run. Meaning, in the short run, Europe and maybe the U.S. will continue to. Even Trump changed his tune and agreed to send some more weapons. But I think in the short run, that may continue. But then in the long run, I think people's appetite and patience will eventually wear thin enough that they will just.
Zelensky is needlessly and shamefully exposing to his own people, his own fighters.
The problem is that the Ukrainian people don't want him to give up land for peace.
Nobody wants.
So what do you do?
Nobody wants. If you want to get something done, you have to make sacrifices. The Indians didn't want to give up America.
That's why Putin really has the upper hand, because he no matter what Zelensky does, he's in a jam.
The Russians are doing massive bombings every day, killing. So you could say all you want, what the Ukrainian people want, and that's understandable. They said it's in their constitution that they can't give up land.
No. They said Zelensky said, I need approval by my government, by my equivalent of Congress or Parliament, whatever, he can't unilaterally as president do that. I mean, that makes perfect sense that, one person.
So
You think the president should have the right to give up land on behalf of the whole country?
he's got to do what's good for the nation.
What's the purpose of a government that,
stop
why
it.
does the Senate
To
in our
stop-
country have to approve a treaty?
What's it?
Why does the Congress have to declare war so that the president doesn't have unfettered power?
Trump does what he wants and
So,
lets them.
so do you think the president
lets them
should
go
have
to
the right?
court.
You think the president, the single person, should have the right
I
to
think in this-
enter into
in-
an
in
agreement
the
where he
case
cedes
where-
land?
In the case where he's doing the right thing for his people,
All right.
you think he should let his people continue to?
No, sir.
Be-
That's not what I said.
I'm asking. So
I'll
does-
answer the question.
Does he have to make sacrifices?
I think
And
he should
if it's
follow his Constitution, and if the Constitution says his version of the Congress is elected by the people, right? So
Doesn't
if
matter.
the
Doesn't
Congress, if only the Congress
In this
can
case-
concede land,
In this case,
then I think that's what should happen.
In this
That
case-
they need approval of Congress to
in this
give up
case,
land.
he should act and take the risks of being impeached or whatever else
All right, I don't agree
with
with
the
that.
consequence.
I think
You-
he
you-
should
you-
follow his Constitution.
And you probably think it's a good thing to let
No, sir.
those people.
No, sir. That's
If
not what I
there's
said.
no
You're putting
alternative-
words in my mouth.
But there's
That's not
no
what I
if
said.
there's no alternative.
Not what I said, sir.
I'm asking you if there's no alternative.
I say I leave it to the
If he
vote
can't
of
get
the
Congress,
government.
if he can't get, or it'll take 6 months to get the vote.
Then
And
it
in the
doesn't
meantime, 50,000 Ukrainians are killed.
I don't.
If you're
I
a
don't-
leader, you've got the balls to
But a
do.
leader
to do
can't give up
even-
land on the country unilaterally.
He's got
That's
to
why
do,
we have laws.
He's got to do what
That's why we have laws.
The laws are to guarantee the safety of the population.
Well,
That's more overrides every other
well,
thing.
then there's no purpose of having laws if you believe that any one of the laws can be disregarded. And that would be like the president saying, I think this is in the best interest of the country. I'm going to ignore the laws and ignore the Constitution. I don't believe that that's right.
Cops kill people all the time without a trial, without anything.
I don't think that's.
They get into
point here.
yeah. What do you mean? They don't ask for permission.
That's not really the point. The point at issue is whether or not the
When
president
there's an
can do
emergency-
things that are required that need, say, congressional
When
approval.
there's an urgency, you got to act.
I don't agree with
even
that.
if you're going to be impeached.
I think that's why we have law and order. That's why we have laws in this
Did you
country.
ever hear the statement? Who said that? The law is a fool.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. The
The
law.
law's an ass, I believe.
What?
The law's an ass.
Yes.
Ass, I believe is the quote.
Oh, the law is. Yeah, I
Yes.
agree with that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. If I would.
I think that's why we have a constitution, is that we have rules that we put in place to follow and not to say, well, I don't feel like following them. That's my opinion.
It might be. Look, the Torah, the Bible of the Jewish people, has the punishment, an eye for an eye. And so if you follow the law exactly, that's the law. It's written precisely. The wisdom of the Sanhedrin, of the leaders of the country, met and said, it's too cruel. We'll do monetary compensation or some other behavior.
Right, but for example, in our country, the Senate must approve all treaties. That's what the Constitution says. If the president says, I want to do a treaty with a certain country because I think it's really important for the safety of the country to do that treaty.
He's done it.
Not a treaty.
He's done treaties with Mexico.
That's not a
and
treaty.
Canada.
The Senate has to approve all treaties. I believe that's
He's
the way it should
He's
be.
had treaty with
That's not a
different
treaty.
countries,
No,
yes.
that's a different business deal. All right.
it took a
Read
treaty.
Maury, I hate to say, read the Constitution, what it says.
I read it.
It says the Senate must approve all treaties.
I know the Bible given from God directly says an eye for an eye. And we're violating that law all the time, because the better part of law should be the wisdom that works best for the people at that given moment. And if the Constitution's wrong, then we've got to meet to change the
I would agree with that.
Okay.
But until it's changed, I think you have to follow it.
Until it's changed, I agree with Trump.
Okay.
You do what produces safety.
I mean, that's
Look, he's sending.
That's your view. I don't agree with that. I think we follow the Constitution until we change it. If we don't like the Constitution, then we change it.
Trump is sending military troops to Washington, D.C.
Yes.
He's not supposed to be able to do that.
Yes, he is. He's allowed to.
Under what
the Constitution permits him to do that.
Under what situation?
Military. Yes, he's permitted. He's not violating the Constitution by doing that. He's allowed.
Well, to bring in lawsuits to the contrary.
That's maybe the case, but he does. He does.
That right.
Yeah, he does.
All right.
Just like he had the right to fire that woman from BLS, the statistics person. Under his authority as commander-in-chief, he does have authority to do it. Whether or not he should, whether or not it's really a crisis, that's a different question, because he says crime is higher. It's actually down from a few years ago. So that's
the Supreme Court has endorsed many things that Trump does that seemingly violate the Constitution.
That's their job to interpret what it is.
But the people are in favor of it, and the people count.
That's yes, except.
I think it's cruel. I think it's cruel to just pay attention to what's written and not pay attention to what's happening.
Well, that's why
I think that's cruel.
I think that's what makes our country is law and order, and having a constitution that is a document and laws that we respect and abide by. And if we don't like them, we don't just say, I don't like them, I'm doing it my way. We change it, and we have a process to change it. That's my view.
That's why I argue that we are the worst country in the world. We kill more people. We provide more arms to all the negative people as well as positive to kill others. We're heroic in that, like we're on the side of God. So whatever we do is all right. That's ridiculous. We have never been attacked once in the history of America. We've never been attacked once.
I'm not disagreeing with that, and I'm not sure how that really relates to what the Constitution provides for, but that's a separate point.
Well, I
don't disagree.
I think the Supreme Court has taken the view that the Constitution is adaptive.
Yes.
And they've reinterpreted.
But if we don't like it, then we can change the Constitution.
No,
like if we want to change the Second Amendment, we could change the Second Amendment to be clearer.
Without changing the Constitution, we've changed a lot of behavior.
Yes.
Well,
but example, if we want to clarify that, we could change it.
But the one that assigned that job was the Supreme Court by the Constitution.
Correct.
And they for example, traditionally, historically, if a law was passed and deemed consistent with the Constitution to permit abortion, and it was in effect for years, traditionally, it became permanent. It became law. It was done within the rules of the Constitution. So now you have to go back and change the Constitution to get that approval.
If there's something,
all right.
There's something that's not clear,
but we're not going to agree on this because you don't believe in the adaptiveness of the law, which actually the Supreme Court acts on that behavior often. Some of them are originalists, and they take the law as is written, even though They don't
But what
explain
I'm
why.
saying is, if the Supreme Court interprets the Constitution in a way that most of the people don't like, they could change the Constitution to clarify that. For example, if we want to change the Second Amendment to make it clear that people don't always have the right,
but they haven't. They have.
But that's
If they're unhappy with it,
then we're stuck with what we have until we change
because
it.
we also recognize that it should be adaptive.
That's right.
So we've let things happen that the people didn't rebel or call for a. They have things that
Right,
when they want to recall
because it was interpreted and sanctioned by the Supreme Court.
I understand.
So I don't think if the president gave up land unilaterally
to achieve peace,
that would be
he could do
would that be permitted by the it certainly would be very disputable under the Constitution. Would the Supreme Court uphold it? Maybe.
I think if they didn't, they'd be insane
Oh.
to let the killings of our people go on needlessly only because we want to save land. That's a different set of values.
Well, we didn't make it west beyond the Atlantic.
What are you saying?
We didn't make it west beyond the Atlantic back to the U.S. We'll have to pick up next week. We only made it from the Middle East to Europe.
Close to the end.
Yeah, we're over time.
Are you
quite
serious?
A bit, yeah. But it does, as you say, time flies when we're having fun.
My God, you got such a list. But CNN, to me, that's the most nonsensical
I think
set of proposals.
It wasn't a proposal. They were just saying possibilities, and
they should
weren't.
propose possibilities like Zelensky, if you're saying that he needs approval, that Zelensky should go to his Congress.
They weren't.
And say no, and ask for approval, because it's the only way we're going to stop the killing of our people. That's it. That's what leadership calls for. If something is urgently needed, that's what Trump's attitude is. These bombs, they're doing whatever they feel like, regardless of what's right. So I'll get it done, and let him take it to the courts, and we'll see. So far, he hasn't been revoked on hardly anything. The Supreme Court hasn't turned him down on any of the major issues that he's. But to me, the safety of the people is the primary objective. The sole objective, or the not so, but the overwhelmingly dictated objective that the leader has to provide: the safety of his people. That's why I resent that we have wars. Why are we in all these wars? I'm about to start writing a book that on the present evolution, historically, it goes without any question, it's inevitable that within 150 years, probably less, that there won't be human life on this earth. Because each time, every new weapon that's been developed, even though it's you think the scientists that in Utah and Nevada weren't even sure that a bomb that hit near Hiroshima and Nagasaki wouldn't destroy the world. They took the chance anyway, and it didn't destroy the world. But what we have now is 1,000 times more powerful, and also at that time there was only the United States and Russia didn't even have it yet. So we weren't worried that it would lead to the devastation of the whole world. Even when Russia got it, at least they were responsible enough or cared enough, despite their sort of evil leaders, not to use it because it was in danger of getting hit back instantly, mutual destruction. So, but now there's probably at least 40, 50 countries that have it without ensuring that one of them isn't crazy or evil or angry at another country. So, look, the proof is that Iran, which is clearly a hostile nation, incidentally, the head of the Human Rights Commission is one of, look it up, it's one of the most violent countries. It's not Iran, but it's Iraq, or one of those. You know.
That's the UN for you.
No, that's the United States supporting it.
Yeah.
We should kick them out and not give them the money. What did they do? It's true that there's a vote of 5 that needs, and 2 of them are the United States and England. But absent that, it would be. But they don't stop any wars. They don't end any wars.
Well, true. All right, so thank you for
Thank you for aggravating.
for a lively discussion, as we always have.
Lively, you're killing me. A deathly, potentially deathly discussion.
We will reconvene next week. Okay. You can wish everyone well, and we can reconvene.